Hi, Recovery Girls. I'm Kristin. I want to talk about step 8 for partners of sex addicts. If you haven't already, go ahead and listen to steps 1 through 7 before you try to tackle 8, because these steps do build on one another. Step 8 says, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So this can be a scary one for some of us. I experienced so much freedom and liberation from one of my greatest character defects, even in the process of working this step, because I had to put myself at the top of my list of people that I had harmed. And you know what probably caused me some of the most harm was my character defect of perfectionism and my tendency to be very critical and to focus on the negative in myself instead of being able to see myself in a balanced view or as a human being who is naturally going to have character defects and make mistakes. So I was at the top of my list, and I encourage you, when you're ready for step 8, to think about putting yourself at the top of that list and becoming willing to make amends to yourself by treating yourself differently, by monitoring the way you talk to yourself. Like, how much self-criticism, how much perfectionism do you have in your view of yourself and the way that you drive yourself? I know all of us have different ways that we can harm ourselves. So take a look at that. This is really important to do with the loving guidance of a sponsor. And remember that we're not doing this to rip ourselves apart. We're doing this so we can know ourselves. I was really surprised at some of the people that were on my list in step 8 that my sponsor helped me see that I was really exaggerating how much harm I had caused, and that what I had done was really more of just like a simple human mistake. But some of these things I had held on to for years in silence and had never talked about with anybody. So just even making that list and talking about it with my sponsor gave me a lot of relief of realizing, I've really expected superhuman or perfectionism from myself. And that's so unrealistic. It helped me embrace the fact that I'm human. So as we make a list of all people we've harmed, we come to the question of what to do about our actual sexually addicted spouse. Well, this is part of why we don't recommend working this step like early on in your process. But if the dust has settled and you have felt like you've had some space from the trauma and you're not living in a fight, flight, or freeze mode, you're not living in that shock stage, and you're ready for step 8, and you put your sexually addicted spouse on your list of people you have harmed, just a couple things to keep in mind. Number 1, anybody who works the 12 steps, who has a spouse or a partner, is going to need to put the spouse or the partner on the list of people they've harmed, because there is not a single person in a primary relationship with another human being who has not harmed them. I mean, that's just part of humanity. So it may burn us up, the idea that we would have any kind of harm that we've caused our sexually addicted partner, given how much harm they've caused us because of their addiction. So that's why it helps to have a little space between yourself and the severity of the trauma and the shock before you take this step, because you do need to grieve the losses and allow the shock to kind of wear off before you start to take on the ways that you could have caused harm in your relationship, just the same way that anybody causes harm in their relationship. So we also have to hold on to the 3 C's as we're doing this about our sexually addicted partner, and that is that you didn't cause his sexual addiction, not even your character defects, or the ways that you're looking at how you've harmed him in step 8. None of these things cause his addiction or his acting out. You could never control his addiction or his acting out, and you can't cure it. So remember that. But that doesn't mean that there aren't ways that we may have harmed him, both before his addiction came out, during the aftermath of having discovered, and afterwards. So doing this with a trusted sponsor who understands the trauma that you've been through, somebody who can help you have a lot of compassion and empathy towards yourself, and somebody who is either hopefully knowing you really well at this moment or is on a journey to really know you, so that you can approach this from a place of compassion and empathy for yourself, so that you're looking at, okay, when I got super angry and picked up a sledgehammer and wanted to crush his genitals with it because of what he had done in acting out in his addiction, that was a normal anger response. But one of the times that I actually followed through and carried out something that ended up causing further harm. And typically what we have to remember is that typically, especially in the early days, those were things that we were doing when we were completely flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. And perhaps we didn't have the skills and the tools to process that, and we literally lose ourselves. In fact, one layer of the trauma that partners of sex addicts often experience is a form of self-betrayal where we act completely out of our own normal realm of behavior and character. So please keep that in mind. And that's why I think it's so important to work with a sponsor who is trauma-informed and can help us sort through, okay, where is this just like a general pattern I have in my life of ways I've harmed my partner versus where was I in a trauma response? And that becomes really tricky. But remember, the point of this step is not to rip yourself to shreds or to try to blame yourself for his sexual addiction at all. But it's to know yourself, to know the person that God has created you to become ready to clear away any kind of barriers between you and other people that you want to be in a reconciled relationship with, and especially for you to make peace with yourself. And this can be a real step of relief if you can do it in a safe way with a safe person. So I'm thankful that I don't have to be on this recovery journey. I'm thankful that I'm on it with you.